I have scratched my head, shaken my head in absolute awe and amazement as I've watched the world around me change recently. And I think at the forefront of the change is what has happened with the homosexual community. I think that this is a perfect example of calling good evil and evil good. But it has caused me to reflect, and my mind tumbled back over some 20 years when I was living near Tacoma, Washington. A gay rodeo association wanted to hold a rodeo at the King County Fairgrounds in Enumclaw, Washington. And this caused some concern and some stir. The community was saying no, and this being a working class community, loggers, dairymen, and the like, they didn't want it there, but it came nonetheless. At that time, I was working as a freelance photographer, and I thought, well, there might be some news here, and so I ventured out to see what I could capture. As I checked in at the main gate, the announcer over at the rodeo arena caught my attention. I could tell from what he was saying that they were in the middle of doing their bulldogging competition. And what caught my attention was actually two things. First of all, the times he was announcing. He was announcing 1 and 2 second times. Now, these are amazing times in any rodeo, anywhere. Now, I have to tell you that I have some understanding of rodeo. I competed in junior rodeo and junior high school and in high school. As an adult, I showed cutting horses and rein cow horses and versatility ranch horses. I have some understanding of what is going on. The other thing that caught my attention is between almost every run, this announcer would go on and on and on about how their performance at their rodeos was every bit as professional, every bit as tough, every bit as competitive as anything that would happen at the professional rodeo level, the PRCA. I thought, well, I guess I better go see. So I headed on over there, and like I said, they were doing bulldogging. And bulldogging involves 2 horses, lots of speed, 1 fast-moving steer. And a cowboy actually leaps from his horse and wrestles the steer to the ground. It requires a lot of coordination, it requires a lot of strength, and it requires a lot of practice. And so, as I stepped up to the arena fence and looked inside, I was amazed. The steers they were using were of the proper type and of the proper size. But the way they were running their event was something I had never seen before. They brought the steers into the bucking chutes, 1 steer per chute. And then the cowboy would slide down into the chute with the steer, and he would grab the steer by the horn and grab the steer by the nose and twist his head till his nose was pointing skyward and his shoulder was leaning on the gate. And then those that were running the arena would swing the gate open, and the cowboy would flop over, pulling the steer with him, and the steer would flop down on the ground right there in front of the gate. And the announcer would say, 1.7 seconds! You hardly ever see times like this at the PRCA. Wow, I thought, this is interesting. Well, I watched this for a while, and quite frankly, I was disgusted. I mean, if this is how they want to do their event, fine. But you can't do this event and compare it to PRCA bulldogging and say that they are one and the same and that the boys at this rodeo were doing a better job than the professional cowboys. Well, I'd seen all I needed to see, and I started to leave. And as I was heading back out across the fairgrounds, I heard the announcer say, "Now, stick around. Bull riding is next." Bull riding? I wonder how they do that, I thought. And so I went back to watch. Now, this was pretty amazing. They use these same little steers. Now, these are small steers. These are, they're short. They're light of frame. And they ran these same steers into the bucking chutes. And then these cowboys would slide down in the chute and straddle the steer. And they let the steer out. And the steer didn't weigh a whole lot more than the man riding him. And the steer would scamper out across the arena. And at one point, I actually watched a long-legged cowboy get himself off center a little bit. And he reached down with a leg and pushed off on the ground and pushed himself back to center and finished his 8-second ride like a champion cowboy. Wow. Wow. So I stayed and watched. I needed to see all of this. When it was all done, the cowboys lined up out in the middle, and they had their big hats. They had their $200 boots and their leather chaps and their gray, big, shiny belt buckles. But none of that makes a real cowboy. None of that makes a real rodeo. I can name boys by the thousands that could show up in tennis shoes and T-shirts and outperform what I saw that day. So these boys all decked out in their cowboy gear were standing in line and receiving their awards. And I realized this isn't real. None of this is real. There's nothing at all that is real about what I've seen today. There was a part of me that just ached to have a completely angry Mexican fighting bull and turn him loose in that arena with all those duded up, shined up cowboys and let them have a taste of what real feels like. But no bull was available. But I would have loved to have seen it. 2,000 pounds of snot and snort running those boys aground. It would have been great. Now, it's not because of who they are. It's not because of their lifestyle. It's because of what they did and the way they counterfeited rodeo and what rodeo really is. It ticked me off. But like I said, the realization was, this isn't real. It's counterfeit. Now, I have likened this to something else that I have witnessed. You see, they think that they can counterfeit marriage and that they can propose that what they have and what God has instituted, one man, one woman, and their children, they propose that these are the same things. Well, I am telling you, what makes a marriage real isn't the fact that two people can get in bed and have all the sex they want. What makes marriage real is that a man and a woman come together, bound by love, bound by dedication and commitment. They bring children into the world one at a time, and they devote everything to those children. They defend them, they protect them, they teach them. And when those children break their parents' hearts, they cry and they pray. And when God hears those prayers, they fall to their knees again and they give thanks. You see, a father and a mother, they go through these things. A husband and a wife working together for a common cause. That is what is real. And so when two men come together and call it marriage, or two women do the same, and they can't produce children, and they lack that same level of dedication and commitment that not only encompasses the two, but grows into a family and encompasses all, not just children, but grandchildren. You know, I have 15 grandchildren and one in the oven. One of those is a great-grandchild. Now, that is what is real. And so I got to thinking, the homosexual community is searching for something that can be real, something that can be meaningful, something that will bind a couple together forever and will expand that couple beyond themselves, beyond their children, and even beyond their grandchildren. But what they have is counterfeit. It's fake. It's false. It's a cheap copy at best. So as I compared my rodeo story and events in the recent past, I've come to understand one thing. It's just not real. I'm Lance Earl. I'll see you soon.